Hey there, 2021 GPS students. My name is Dr. B. I am going to be your faculty mentor and your professor for your first year seminar, Horizons of Hope. As part of getting to know each other a little bit better before we actually start the semester, I'm asking you to take a student snapshot survey. It has somewhere around 20 questions on it. You don't necessarily need to answer all of them. There are a bunch at the end that are optional, but the more you answer and the more thoroughly you answer them, the better I'll get to know you, the faster I'll get to know you, and the better I'll be able to help you, and we'll be able to help each other, really. In order to introduce myself, as well as to give you an idea of how you might answer some of these questions, I'm actually going to work through the survey myself with you in this short video here, just so you have an idea of the ways you might answer these questions. So again, you can call me Dr. B. I go by he, him, and his. Whatever your preferred name, whatever your preferred pronouns are, just let me know in the survey and I will make sure that I endeavor to refer to you appropriately. Also, as part of that first section, I ask for a motto or a quote that you live by or that in some ways defines an important aspect of you as an individual. Mine would have to be a quote from Henry James that I first encountered at UWGB, because I am a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, when I was taking a modern American poetry class. And though Henry James wasn't a poet, he was quoted in the introduction to The Beat Reader. And it is a quote that has absolutely stuck with me. It was the tag on my, the part of my signature line in my email for the longest time, and I really believe in it. And that quote goes, that the best things come as a general thing from talents that are members of a group, and each works better when working in his own line and yielding the stimulus of suggestion, comparison, and emulation. And I think this is so important to me because while I am in many ways a rugged individualist, I go, backwoods camping by myself, like, Thoreau might have. And, despite that, I am also clear-minded enough to know that we don't do anything on our own. It does not matter how much of an individualist you think you are. If you're using language, if you're using a telephone, if you're using a car, you are standing on the shoulders of those who have come before you. And this goes for the things that you create as well. Every poem that you have written has roots in the poems that were written prior. The same thing goes for stories. Same thing goes for inventions you might make. If they require the tools or inventions of those who have come before, you didn't do it on your own, right? You may have put all of those previous tools together in your own ways, so this is not to undercut your ingenuity or your hard work, but it's to rather recognize the fact that you owe a debt of gratitude, or we owe a debt of gratitude to those who have come before, and those who are currently working in the same field as we are. The next section of that survey then is about your values, the attributes that define you, and some of your skills that make you a unique individual. If I were to list 3 attributes that define me, or that others might say define me, I would have to say that, first of all, they would probably say that I am cheerful, that I am fun-loving, right? And I am. I love to laugh. I love to play. It informs my pedagogy. The way that I teach is very rigorous. It's very demanding, but it's also based a lot on game and the idea of play and trying to find a way to, see and to experience the joy in rigor, the joy in hard work. So they would say I'm cheerful. They would also probably say that I am adventurous. So I have, besides doing things like, backcountry camping, going out for, the longest I ever gone was a month with just what I could carry into the woods. I've also lived with my wife and my child abroad for 10 years. And so I have lived, worked, and studied and played on 4 different continents over that time period. And so I think adventurous would be another attribute they would ascribe to me. And then finally, I think determined. When I put my mind to something, it gets done, hell or high water. And I think that this is, a really admirable attribute in anybody who can demonstrate it. And this isn't to say that I don't have failures, I have lots of them. But I am really good at not letting them define me. And I hope that that's something that if you're not already there, that you come to see as central to who you are as well, because that tenacity, that resilience, it will get you, it'll take you a long ways. In terms of core values, there's a little quiz you're going to take, and it's going to give you some of your chief values as it sort of figures them to be. And creativity was number one on my list. And I would wholeheartedly say that one of my core values is indeed creativity. Just as I am a firm believer that we're always standing on the shoulders of those who've come before us, I'm also a believer that creativity underpins everything that we do, or at least everything that we do with passion and that we do well. And that is whether you're writing a poem, cooking a meal, washing the dishes afterwards. There's always room for creative enterprise there. A new way, a new system for doing the dishes, a new recipe, and of course, a new poem or a new painting, right? But this applies to math. It applies to science. It applies to construction. You name it, and there's room for creativity. And I think those of us who are masters of our field must also exercise that creative license. So that would be my core value. As for special skills or strength or an interest, I'm a writer by trade. I started off writing poetry, and then I moved into writing short stories. And my last major work was a utopian novel that I like to describe as a cross between a choose-your-own-adventure and a BuzzFeed quiz. So essentially, as you read this novel, you'll be asked to provide some gut responses to some sections in the novel, and depending on your responses, how they stack up in terms of your sense of liberty versus authoritarianism, and of your economic purview, so capitalism versus communism, it changes the way the story unfolds. So I'm a writer. Now, you can tell me about your writing, your art, your music, your scientific endeavors, your love of history, whatever it might be. You can also tell me about things that are less academic. So for instance, if I was in your shoes, when I went to, if this was my first year at UWGB, I probably would have said something along the lines of, I kick a mean hacky sack, right? So it can be sport, it can be game, anything that makes you you. The next section then is about your thoughts on this upcoming year. And I want to know your aims and desires. I want to know your fears and inhibitions. And then I want to know if you have any questions for me. So aims and desires. My desire for this year is that you leave this year not just fully prepared to succeed in your educational endeavors, but that you have found the kernel of joy in those endeavors. I want you to thoroughly appreciate and have fun with what we're doing, but also with the things that you're going to go on to do. It'll be hard work. It will be stressful at times. You may even have a moment where you break down in tears. But if you can hold on to that kernel of joy, you will find the resilience to pick yourself up and keep going even when things get tough. If I had a fear for this upcoming semester, it's the lingering trauma of being, online for a year and a half. I can't wait to be in the classroom with you guys. And there's a little piece of me that's still fearful that we won't be able to go back to the classroom the way it was. And that's okay as long as we can hopefully stay off our computers and we can be in person in some form or another. As for questions, it can be about me, it can be about the class, they can be about the university experience, whatever. And then the last section gives you, 5 or 6 different categories for you to choose at least one. You can do more, you can do all of them if you want, but at least one category where I want to know a little bit more about what makes you tick. So use free reign here to tell me about your family, tell me about your philosophy, tell me about your travel, tell me about your pastimes. You know it. So I'll do 2. For pastimes, I'm a kayak fisherman. I got into kayak fishing when I was in Australia, though I didn't get my first kayak until we had moved back to Wisconsin. And I like to take it out on our local rivers and lakes. And in fact, I'll even take it out on the bay. I wouldn't say that I'm a great fisherman, but I do enjoy it. I like being out in the water, the sense of calm and relaxation, as well as the punctuations of the excitement that comes when the fish is on your line. And then a quick travel story. And I'm sure that you'll have lots of travel stories that we can swap as well. But I think one of my grandest adventures was when I was leaving Korea. My wife and I, we sailed to China from Korea across the China Sea, the West China Sea, or East China Sea, I think it was. And then we spent some time in Beijing, traveled the Great Wall, and then I got on a train by myself and rode the Trans-Mongolian, which is a branch of the Trans-Siberian Railroad, all the way to Moscow, where I spent some time there, and then eventually took a plane to my ultimate destination, which was Amsterdam, where I was slated from a year earlier to meet one of my best friends from UWGB for a game of chess. And that little tiny thing was the driving motivation for getting there. And so we sat down, played our game of chess, celebrated my birthday, and it was just a really memorable experience for the journey as much as for the destination. At any rate, those would be, some sample answers to these questions. I look forward to reading yours and getting to know a little bit about you before class even kicks off. And then once we get into the class, we are going to be working very closely together. So we're going to get to know a lot about each other. And I'll tell you what, gang, I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to have a lot of fun this semester. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to laugh a lot. And whatever your struggles and whatever your triumphs, we're going to do it together. All right. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.